Good evening, Change Warriors. So lovely to see all your faces. A lot of smile that is happening, and I'm sure you are as excited as I am to be talking to not just amongst ourselves, but also I think the audience who will be watching us live today. So before we go into our conversation at depth. To everybody who is watching this, hello, I am Anugraha Venugopal, your host for this evening, and I am here on behalf of Team Tribes for Good. We are a new age community impact platform that is keen on helping high schoolers like the folks you see here experience social entrepreneurship, experience citizen leadership by actually working on projects on the ground using their own interests and their talents. I would love to go and tell you more about what we do, but then we have an agenda for today, and so you can definitely keep following us on our Facebook, Instagram, and our website to know the kind of work we do. And it's best to actually have our change warriors tell you what they do and what has been their journey so far. So that's why I have with me here five amazing change warriors, versatile non-conformist Pari Mehrotra, and we have STEM influencer Krish Patwari, we have a Zoomer activist Yash Kamble, we have an advocate for differentness Zen Kashyap, we have a grassroots change amplifier Sunidhi. And these are five people whose stories we are very proud to project to the world today. It's not just because of the passion that they have shown, but it's also to do with the fact that they have gone above and beyond in terms of what this project required by deeply diving in and not just limiting themselves to the scope of the project, but even taking it to their own lives in some way or the other. And that's why we want to be able to talk to them. So today's agenda for this beyond school webinar series is our alumni storybook called Unmute series. So this is a storybook that we are proud to have created because this book tells us the beautiful journeys that these change warriors have been on. Hi, all of you. Are you ready to tell us your stories? Yes,
Yes,
no?
ma'am.
Of
Awesome.
course.
Okay, so because we have everyone here, and I think we've all worked on similar or extremely different projects, and I think it's best for our audience to be able to understand each project individually. So, what I do want to do is I want to start with individual questions, like to each one of you to know how your project has been, right? So, I'm going to start with Zen. Zen, I also had the chance to talk with you during our live and on Instagram. And so I know uh, how much of work you've done for the project, right? But for the sake of our audience, who some of whom might be new here, uh, what do you think about what are your views on the project that you did, the subject of your project, right? Cyberbullying. What are your views on that? And as somebody who is using your differentness to the maximum to be able to bring a positive change, how do you see where we were and how are things now slowly changing? So, what are your views in general?
Okay. So when I started this project, I was so very excited because it's a topic so close to my heart. So you see, disabilities are everywhere in life in different forms and different shapes.
Right.
And while some are visible, others quite aren't. I've seen these issues around me almost daily. We witness it everywhere classrooms, playgrounds, and online. We
Right.
witness it happening to everyone, the smartest and the not so smart, the
True.
wealthy and not so well off. The worst part of it is that with social media becoming such a pervasive aspect of our lives and lending so much instant fame, or rather infamy,
Yeah.
along with anonymity, and therefore offering protection to the perpetrators, it's going to be very difficult to continue to fight this issue of cyberbullying as well as differentness. So I feel that we've grown a lot since earlier, where we couldn't accept each other because we were different. Earlier, India had laws against the LGBTQI community, but I've seen in the recent years that they've been revoked, and instances like this have been continue to be growing.
Mhm.
So I feel we've come a long way, and I hope we can go a little further.
All right. So, because you spoke about how we're seeing this all around us in some form or the other, and like you said, it's not really restricted to a certain group of people. I wanted to ask about an interesting survey that I came across, in the course of creating the stories of all your journeys. We read that Indian children are, susceptible to more cyberbullying as compared to the rest of the world. So, as a change warrior who has worked on the topic of cyberbullying and its impact on someone's mental health, how true or how much of a cooked up story do you think that kind of a study is, as in your experiences of working on the project?
So I kind of read a little survey about this as well. So according to McAfee's 2022 Cyberbullying in Plain Sight report, which polled 10 countries, India included, astonishing and embarrassing in equal measures, India came out to be the number one nation that reported
Right.
for cyberbullying, with more than 1 in 3 kids facing cyber racism, sexual harassment, and threats of physical harm as well. There are more stats on this, and I will quote some, are
Right.
staggering and eye-popping. So you may not know this, but 85% of Indian children reported being cyberbullied, as well as have been cyberbullied themselves. Uh, the rates are well double the international average.
Mm-hmm.
42% of children have been the target of racist cyberbullying, which is
Right.
twice the global average. The global average is about 28%, and the Indian average is 14%.
Right.
Then, even the rates of trolling, personal attacks, sexual harassment, and threats of personal harm are almost double the worldwide average. Again, as I quoted earlier, it's pretty shocking. It happens everywhere on social media and messaging platforms. We see cyberbullying, but we're not able to do anything about it because social media is, again, a large aspect of our lives. So the reasons for this cyberbullying are somewhat complicated. Uh, did you know that 45% of Indian children hide their cyberbullying experiences from their parents? 45%. Just think about that. So in
That's a
India,
terrible. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
755 million people have access to the internet, and many of them are children, with the average use of mobile phones and the internet being around 5+ hours. And parents have huge gaps in understanding cyber security related issues.
True.
And this renders them a little useless and unable to protect their own children from malicious crimes, including harmful content, cyberbullying, and the children might also misuse their private information, which might lead to further trouble. Many children take part in cyberbullying even without knowing what exactly cyberbullying is. And that is what we at Project 25 had aimed to educate less privileged about. We aim to discuss this issue further and try to make them understand why this issue was so important and what cyberbullying exactly entailed. Uh,
So
Another
essentially, what you did was tell people these numbers aren't just numbers. These aren't just people telling that this happens, but this is something that hits closer home because it's either amongst our peers, it's either amongst people who live in our street, in our flats, in our schools. So basically, it's something that's prevalent and something that we maybe conveniently choose to ignore, or like you said, in some cases we are helpless because we don't know enough about it. So I think that kind of puts the context of how important your work really is then, as someone who has also, like you said, lived experiences of cyberbullying, to be able to channel that into the work you do. So I want to touch slightly upon that. So because like you said, you've seen these instances around you. Is there any, maybe like a certain instance that made you think, okay, this is not okay at all, like this just can't be happening?
Yeah, I haven't seen it personally for myself, but I've seen some of my friends go through it earlier.
Okay.
Cyberbullying, they didn't exactly know what it was, and I'm not gonna name them out. So
Right.
uh, earlier, one of my old school friends went through this, and they were a little hesitant to speak up because they thought the consequences would be a little too much for such a small incident. I wouldn't
Right.
exactly call it cyberbullying, but they'd been excluded from certain groups because
Mm-hmm.
of certain instances. So yeah.
Right. So, like you said, I think not being aware of it is also another problem that we unfortunately need to address, because any problem solution starts with first recognizing, hello, there is a problem here, and we seem to be ignorant, or we are conveniently not looking into it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that. Then you wanted to add something? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to elaborate a little on what you said. So
sure.
in order to solve any problem, we must accept first that the problem actually exists. We cannot go
Absolutely.
on solving it with being in denial and just yeah.
True, that is true then. Thank you so much. I am going to use that as actually my lead for my next guest for today's webinar, Pari. Pari, you also worked on a similar project, which again dealt with cyberbullying and mental health. But then yours also had another intersection to it, which was specifically the peer group, right? So you spoke about, I mean, your project dealt with how this whole issue of cyberbullying and how the impact of mental health, while it's there is a problem for the common group, there's also a larger set of problems for a smaller group. And
Yes.
sometimes, like I was just saying, we conveniently choose to ignore the smaller group because it's not the majority.
Yeah.
So in the context of this work that you did through your project, how important is it to talk about peer health, mental health, or inclusivity? How important are these topics just firstly to have conversations?
I think it is very important, firstly, because they face a lot more mental health issues than heterosexuals do. And coming out to the world is in itself a very confident and bold move. And then when you do it and you don't get accepted, you get discriminated just for being who you are,
True.
it just makes it more worse. So I think it's very important to talk about it because they face a lot of issues like anxiety, depression. And
Right.
I was reading a survey that was conducted. It said 40% of transgenders committed suicide in their lifetime. So I like attempted to commit suicide in their lifetime.
Right.
So
Right.
it was
And
very
that's a
shocking.
number
And
we could have
yeah,
helped bring
yes,
down, or
exactly. We couldn't
yeah,
help. And it's
yeah.
our responsibility to make them feel accepted, comforted, and make them feel like it's a safe space and they can just let like be themselves and be accepted for who they are. So I
Right.
think it's extremely important to talk about that.
Thank you so much for emphasizing that, Pari. And I think on that note, I must also congratulate you for
Yeah.
the context of our audience. Pari Mehrotra is not just a Tribes for Good change warrior, she is now the president of her school's mental health club. So, which means
Thank
she
you.
is in, like they say in the Spider-Man movies, with power comes more responsibility.
Yeah.
So, Pari is now okay, I think I should ask Pari, right? Instead of me guessing what Pari is doing with her title. So, Pari, how does it feel to be the mental health president? Like, I'm sure it's a lot of responsibility,
Yeah, it
but at the
is.
same time, it's also empowering to be able to use that role to do more good work, right? So, how has it been for you?
It's been amazing. Like this is something that I wanted, and that's why I got this club introduced. And the thing is that when I was in tribes like when I did a social impact project with Tribes for Good, I also learned so much, gained a lot of experience, and I didn't even myself know like about these issues in depth. And when I got to
Right.
know, I wanted to work for it. So I thought that starting with my school would be a great initial step. That's why,
Thank
yeah.
you so much for saying that. I think that's it's wonderful, and I'm always enjoying these conversations I have with all of you because it reminds me so much that there's a lot one person can do. We tend to sometimes look down upon ourselves and say, "What can I do?" or "What can
Yeah.
I do alone?" But every time I get to talk to you all, it's like a affirmation in many ways in every context that there's so much one person can do, and all of
Yeah.
you are living examples. Thank you for that, Pari. On that note, I want to introduce my next guest, uh, Zoomer activist. So, again, for the context of our audience, I want to tell you why we specifically, felt Zoomer activist would be a great title for Yash Kamble here, because when we were, looking at Yash's journey, we realized one thing was Yash always acknowledged that he belongs to Gen Z and he is privileged. At the same time, Yash was that conscious Gen Z who knew it's not enough to be a privileged person, and that privilege is nothing if you can't use it for the community's good. So we were so happy about Yash and the work he did through Tribes for Good, and especially for the communities that he worked with. Yash, firstly, do you like your title or are you going to revolt against it?
No, no, I absolutely love the title.
All right. So on that note, then I want to ask you, Yash. We were talking also about, you also worked on the project of cyberbullying and mental health. Like Zen was saying just a while ago, it's not an issue that we see only in a certain group of people. It's something that a lot of people experience. People who can be bracketed in different ways, right? So when you, as a Gen Z activist, when you look at your group of folks, your age group, people like you say, people with privileges, how has your observation of these folks been? In the sense, do you think that they are also cyberbullied, or like Zen said, maybe they don't even know they're cyberbullied? How do you think the situation is?
I mean, yeah, I feel like till some extent, Gen Z is the most affected because, in this new era wherein, each and every one of us is surrounded with technologies, we, the youngsters, are like mostly regarded as the tech savvy people.
Right, right.
And this is the point where actually what makes us more and more exposed to social media and technology as well, right? And the more and more we're exposed to social media, the more and more the chances are for us to become a victim of cyberbullying. I mean, that's just my opinion. So I feel that Gen Z is like the most affected when it comes to cyberbullying.
I didn't really think of it that way, but you make a lot of sense. Well, I'm not sure what exactly a statistical study would say, but then I think if we had to borrow from whatever Zen was just telling us in terms of stats, you are hitting it right on the nail when you say that Gen Z, the fact that they are exposed to technology is both a boon and a bane, and therefore, most likely to be at a higher risk. And like Zen said, particularly the Indian children who are being cyberbullied or being victims of cyberbullying. So on that note, Yash, I want to ask you, because I think a lot of times it's our personal experiences or experiences that we've heard or come across that drive us in our work, right? So have you maybe come across anything like that that sort of made you think, okay, this is something I can use my privilege for?
Yes, yes, for sure. Like in the recent times only, I guess it was in 2018 or 17 in Delhi. One instance that just straight up comes to my mind is the boys' locker room case, when
Right.
school boys who were like probably of our age were cyberbullying other girls online on the basis of their physical attractions. So yeah, that's one incident that comes up straight to my mind when I
I
talk.
think, yeah, what you told is a massive example of how technology can be misused, and it's something that Gen Z, again, like you said, got involved in, probably because they didn't know whether whatever they were doing was right or not, or maybe they didn't have enough awareness. Like Zen said, maybe they didn't even know they were being perpetrators, and that
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
another issue that we have to address. And on that note, I'm really using this opportunity to thank Pari, Zen, and Yash for the work you've done through Project 25, which specifically dealt with cyberbullying and mental health and in different groups of people. With that, I want to move to my next guest, Krish. Krish, again, we were thinking of how we would describe Krish's journey, and I remember interacting with Krish, and Krish told me, I like teaching my sister science, and I just thought, why not use it to help other people? And that felt like so. It's a simple idea, but the fact that someone thought something as simple as I like teaching science, so might as well teach it to a bunch of people who need a tutor can actually change their lives, right, Krish? So how does it feel that you in your words, did you do something huge, or did you just use something that you were familiar with?
No, actually, it was a combination of both. I feel
Okay.
in India, like
Okay.
even I've experienced in my school life right now in class 11 and 12, there's this entire stereotype created around science, like it's very tough, don't take it. And I've seen my peers like they have dropped science midway to choose commerce because
Right.
it's an easier approach, and
True.
that's how you lose on a lot of talent. And that's what I thought was not right. You have to struggle in life. That's what will mold you as an individual. And science is all about trial and error and experimentation. And through my projects, I believe I was able to build in that resilience in every student, that you need to work hard, you need to dedicate like 2-3 hours every day, and you will learn something. You will learn that problem solving ability that is very important for something like tech, and
Yeah.
it is going to boost your innovation, your creativity by miles. So
Yes.
yeah.
So that was kind of going to be my next question, Trish. So you worked with students who were from the underserved category, if I could call it so, like people who really do not have the access to resources that they would ideally need, right? So when you look at specifically the category of students that you work with, why do you think they have that much of a dislike or hesitation to pick up STEM, learn science and maths, or even think of a career or a future related to science and maths, or
I think
STEM in general?
the most significant reason is that science is all about practicality, and in India we do not have that facilities for a lot of labs. So students might wonder that, okay, there are atoms, there are molecules, but how do I experience all this? Like I know there is current over here, but how do I experience it in the form of like even an experiment? Like from my point of view also, like I was facing struggles in class 11 and 12 in the COVID times where I had no experience to the labs, but the moment I went to the labs, I did experiments, maybe titration, salt analysis, and whatever be it, and it just expanded my horizon and gave me a lot of motivation that okay, it's working out, it's going to work out. But students like these do not have access to it, and that is what makes it very difficult for them. And they try to approach something which is based on rote learning like geography or history, which does not turn out to be that efficient for them. And also, I believe that marks don't define you. That is what they have to learn, that you need to try your best. Marks will not define you. What you learn as an individual, how you apply it, and how you help others is what matters.
I think you touched upon so many reasons there, like from lack of infrastructure to lack of, not having people who can motivate or support, to even saying that our whole perspective of what marks mean for a future has to change. That itself shows, I think you've taken a lot of learning from the work that you've done, to be able to tell these are some of the areas that we need to be able to help these students with. Thank you so much, Krish, for the work that you have done for these children. I also want to ask you another question related to your field of work, rather than your specific project. So I'm sure you might have heard, as someone who's constantly looking at STEM-based careers and keeping yourself equipped around STEM knowledge, you would be aware that a lot of the jobs in the next decade, nearly like 75-80% jobs will require some form of skill, STEM training, STEM-based skills. So in that context, how important do you think your work has been with students who you taught science and maths to? And also, how much more do you think we can do to help?
I believe that STEM is a very, like what can we say? It's very powerful because as per research, STEM jobs are paying very well as compared to non-STEM jobs. It's almost double the amount as per
Yeah.
research. I don't remember the numbers exactly. It was around $19 or so for non-STEM jobs, but
Okay.
it was almost double the figure for about
STEM based.
38 or $39 for STEM-based jobs, which people need to realize. But it's also tech, which is going to take a lot of jobs in the future. You're seeing tech grow uh, uh, a lot these days. It's everything is going to be tech occupied, and that's where I think people need to invest their time. And I believe through my projects, I was able to develop that habit of instinctive thinking. You need to solve problems in that moment, and it's going to innovate. It's going to get them that feeling of innovation and also hard work, as I mentioned, and uh, even teamwork. Yeah, like you need to work with teams. You need to learn from your
Yeah.
peers. You need to pick up what they are learning and filter accordingly. And also, I believe that in India, education is becoming very costly. IITs, IIMs, think they are attracting a lot of students, and it's almost like IIT is known in the world for the quality of students it has, and students
Yeah.
can look up to IITs and try and have a seat over there and work hard for it.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Krish. I think you put it beautifully when you said that,
Yes.
again, it's not just about the STEM skills, it's also about other 21st century skills like being able to think creatively, collaboration, all of it. But primarily, we need to be able to get these students to know that STEM skills are not something that are unattainable for them just because they come from a certain background or from a place with lesser access to resources also. Thank you so much for sharing that. On that note, I want to introduce my next guest today, who is Sunidhi Patil. And again, when we were thinking about Sunidhi's journey, we realized how Sunidhi has always been a change warrior. Like maybe she became got titled as change warrior after she came into Tribes for Good. But I think Sunidhi has always been a change maker, somebody who is doing a lot of social work on the ground in her hometown. So Sunidhi, for the benefit of our audience who don't know about the work that you do in your hometown in Solapur, could you tell us who are the people that you work with and what do you do with them?
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. It was lovely. So basically, I work for this organization. It's known like Children Observation Home. So
Okay.
they provide foster care to orphan and abandoned children, juveniles, girls who have been victim of social evils like child abuse, rape, and
Right.
child marriage. So they do provide education, they provide access to all different kind of materials that you need to, we girls need to survive.
Right. So, as part of your work, how do you engage with them on, like, on the basis of the projects that you do?
So actually, education is really important. Like it's basis of everything. Whatever you want to do in life, you need to be educated. So for me to take up this issue, which is really close to my heart, I had to, study what actually does, how children suffer from not being able to get access to learning, which is a basic right that we all need
Right.
to have. So I wanted to make sure that when I was going to meet the kids, the girls there, I wanted to make sure that I come from a privileged background. So I didn't want to take their voice away from them. Instead, I wanted to help them uplift their voices and be able to speak for themselves. So when I went there, I went with the mindset that, you tell me what you want to learn and I'll teach you that, because when you're teaching something, it can be monotonous. People get bored.
Yeah.
So the one thing that they mentioned, that they really wanted to learn communication skills to be able to present well. And when I was younger, like when I was in 5th and 6th grade, I did go to these communication skill classes.
Okay.
The teacher who taught me there, her name is Aunty, shout out to her. She really helped me to build my skills. So that's why I was able to teach them. And I did this through, different activities, like a game like Taboo that we play with our friends. So, I used to get these concepts of parts of speech, figures of speech, nouns, pronouns, everything, and then create a taboo game for them that they actually played after I went.
Right.
So
you made it fun for them to learn. And like you said, it was not about what you wanted to teach or what you were interested in teaching, rather what they really wanted to learn, and you taught yourself around it. I think that itself is immense dedication. So we need to be able to identify what they want to learn and then to put in the effort from your side to do that. Hats off to you for that, and also hats off to your teacher, because she has clearly been that person was clearly a huge influence in who you are today. So shout out to them, like you said. I want to ask you, so whatever you told us now is, I think, somewhat before what you came into Tribes for Good, right? Like that's kind of work that was ongoing for you. Then you came into Tribes for Good, and you, I think, did a financial literacy related project with us, right? So, basis the project that you've done with us, basis the exposure that you have got from that project, how important do you think financial literacy is for particularly women and girl children, especially from a vulnerable background like a children's observation home, wherein, like you said, they don't have the same privileged access like we do in many ways. So how important do you think that is?
So I think that financial literacy is key for empowering women, because, we come from this notion that a man of the family has to take care of all the finances. And if he makes a mistake in that, it's fine. But if a woman makes a mistake, then the consequences are ours, and if we connect financial literacy to a larger issue, it's like, when men are said that, oh, you can do all of this, but women are said, no, you can only do this. So, and there's an irony that, women are the ones who take care of all the household expenses, but then they are not allowed to take care of the, greater financial investments or everything. And it is actually, we can see it in the privileged women from privileged backgrounds as well, not only the lower income families. So I feel that through financial inclusion, women can build on the economic security for themselves, for their family. They can be confident enough to take financial decisions,
the big decisions,
as we call. So they become more confident. So I feel like it's key for empowering women.
Thank you, Suniti. And I hope we get to hear a lot more from you about how the financial literacy project that you did at Tribes for Good has, in some sense, helped you in your work at Solapur. We will come to that in a bit. I also want to go back to the other projects, just to understand a bit more about them. So Zain, I want to come to you. I want to ask you about your project in terms of the execution, right? Like you work with a young group of children, like you said, people whose background may not have really enabled them to firstly be aware these exist, or maybe they were aware, but maybe not to the extent that they should ideally know in order to protect themselves. So in that sense, what would you say your challenges were executing the project? Like it doesn't have to be specifically related to how much children were aware or not aware, but in general, right? Like when you look at your project as a whole, what were some of the challenges that were like, really, this is bugging me, kind of a challenge?
Okay, yeah. So in Project 25, one of the biggest challenges we faced was how to communicate to them, because the majority of us were mostly comfortable and are mostly comfortable in English. And they knew English, but not to the extent that they could understand and respond to us. So that's where Pari came in. She became our in-house translator. And a huge shout out to her because without her, none of this would have been possible.
Thank you.
Then, yeah. Then another major problem was getting the enthusiasm of the children up. I think Yash should know because in the first workshop they weren't communicating with us. They weren't replying to what we were saying. We tried engaging them with games but we couldn't. And then I think in the second workshop Yash came up with something that through jokes and games, he sort of became the unofficial friend,
Okay.
and that's how we basically got them to communicate with us. And I think that those are the two main problems we faced.
Okay.
If Yasha, Buddy, you would like to add something to this?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So because Yash and Pari also work on the same project, so anything else that you want to add is, oh, this is another problem.
Yeah, during the workshop, like, yeah, as Zahan correctly mentioned, it seemed as if there was like too much info for the students to register.
Right.
So I came up with a few jokes here and there so that, it would lighten up their mood and they would also enjoy the session at the same time as well, right?
Right.
The second major problem we faced was the interaction with the students, as Zahan correctly mentioned. For the same reasons, we decided to come up with some fun and unique activities for the students to, enjoy and learn something from it at the same time. We learned a lot from the first workshop, hence we kept all the important points, registered in our mind while preparing for the second workshop. And as Zahan correctly mentioned as well, the second workshop went absolutely great. Like the students were interacting a lot, and yeah.
Okay. Pari, do you want to add anything to Zen and Yash?
No, I think they summed it up properly, like perfect.
Okay. All right. I think I'm getting a lot of great information here. One was an official in-house translator. Another was the official friend for the students. So it looks like you all took on a lot of roles and went at it with all you had to be able to take your project to the finish line of sorts, right? So I think I'll actually ask as a continuation. I think it would make a lot more sense to touch this point right here. So in the sense that because you all worked as a team, brought in your strengths collectively and all of that, is there any particular 1, 2, 3 instances where you were able to say, wow, we made an impact? Like, okay, wow, I think we did it. Anything like that for Yash, Zen, and Hari?
Could I start and then maybe you can take over?
Okay.
So one of the biggest oh wow moments for us, for me personally, was when they finally at the end of the second workshop, if I remember correctly, we played a game with them, revising whatever we taught them. And one of the biggest impacts, one of the biggest achievements I felt through the workshops was them smiling back at us and answering all our questions with so much enthusiasm. And I could have sworn I saw a little bit of sadness as we were leaving.
Okay. A little bit of sadness, sorry.
As we
what
were
is the-
leaving.
Okay, so they were sad that the class was getting
Yeah.
over. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that is the biggest credit any facilitator can get. I don't think my students are ever sad to leave me. So I probably schedule a separate Zoom call with you all to find out what you did. I don't think anybody misses me when I'm done with my session. Okay, Pari and Yash, anything that you want to add in terms of impact?
I think it's the same as what Zen said. For me, it was when they started to interact with us, when they started
Okay.
replying. We thought that now we're actually doing something and they're getting to know all of this and they're processing all of this. So I think that was a win.
Right. And Yash, you wanted to add anything?
Yeah, before the workshop, our one and only goal was to, spread as much knowledge as we can about this crucial topic so that later in the future, small budding generations don't become a victim of cyberbullying.
True.
While carrying out the activities, we played games and all of that. We knew that our goal was achieved after we heard the answers, from the students with such great enthusiasm. And our goal of spreading knowledge and awareness about the issue of cyberbullying was achieved after seeing that.
That's fantastic. I think to be able to, measure your impact. I mean, I'm not talking about measuring in a numerical sense, right? But just in the experience sense, to be able to say that I know I made an impact. I think that's so empowering, and I'm elated that three of you got to experience that in your project. And especially considering the topics that you worked on, cyberbullying, mental health, queer health, and all of that. These are not easy topics. Firstly, to even be able to, and I'm sure Pari also did not have it easy to be able to translate these concepts in a way, even if it's in Hindi, even if it's a language that they understand, to be able to explain it in a way that they understand, right? There's a difference between just translating it and then trying to make sense of it. So I'm sure Pari had to put in a lot of effort. I'm sure Yash and the rest of the team also had to come up with a lot of games and, like you said, activities that could make it easy for them to absorb all that vast information. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask the same set of questions to our other folks here as well, our other guests, because your projects are different. And I think the best part about talking to all of you together is you're worked on different topics. Like some of them are, yes, there are intersections, but some of them not really directly with an intersection. Yet all of you have been able to execute your projects to an extent where you have been able to see change. And that is firstly the reason that we're also capturing your stories as alumni stories of change warriors who've done a lot, right? So in that sense, I want to ask Sunidhi, if you had to, maybe I'll ask specifically about your work with the financial literacy team that you worked with Tribes for Good, because I think that is something our audience would be interested in. And maybe also you can tell us if there's anything, any instance from your work in Solapur, but maybe I'll just start with a project you did with Tribes for Good. I think you worked with the team of Shamata, if I'm not wrong. So could you tell us if there was any moment where you felt like, wow, I made an impact?
Yeah, so like, financial literacy is a topic that can be a bit intense to understand. And, you cannot make it fun as such, financial literacy, because there are certain terms that have to be said, said and explained in an appropriate way. Then we try to make it as fun and interactive as possible. So, so we did 2 sessions with them. First one was on investment and the second on digital transactions.
Okay.
And in the first session, when we finished the session for the investments one, so all the girls asked like, when's the next session?
Okay.
That
is proof that you did a good job with the first then.
Yeah, so they were like, oh, when is the next session? And in the next, so like looking at the excitement, we really went well prepared for the second one as well. And in that, all the girls there knew everything about digital transactions. They were like telling us that, oh, Google Pay is there, we find it near some shop. And some of them said that we have created bank accounts. I would want to invest in vehicle, I want to have investment in house, I'm going to take a life insurance and all of that. So I feel like that really motivated all of us to continue the project that we do.
All right. Thank you so much, Sunidhi. I'm going to come back to you about your work in Solapur also. But because Krish is supposed to leave at 6, he has another commitment. So Krish, before you leave, if you could maybe use, this last bit of time to share with us, when did you know you made an impact and how has that felt? How is that feeling?
Ma'am, actually, we had mock sessions for students before the board exams and we gave them mock tests. We checked their homework, but initially what we noticed was there was the same pattern of mistakes. Like in sodium, everyone is making the same spelling mistake. So we knew that obviously homeworks are being copied, but we discussed the matter with them. We talked with them, and then by 2 weeks in time, we saw changes. Like everyone was getting an ample amount of questions correct, and they were answering questions very confidently. Earlier, there used to be disparity among, like there was only 1 or 2 students who were answering, and there was quite a lot of difference. But that, which we also felt very bad, like how would they feel that if someone is better than them or not. But afterwards, everyone was enjoying the sessions, and even with the Canva project that I did, I mean, students were like, the moment we taught them, the WhatsApp group was just flooded with their presentations or their posters, and the innovation that they had. I remember they had such beautiful suggestions that even we as mentors were surprised. Like they suggested that use this background or use this theme, or what if we could change it in this way, or what if we could do a sports based project. So that is something that we didn't expect, and that is what was a wow moment for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And like you just mentioned, apart from the STEM projects, we're also associated with that for other projects, one of which was the Canva project. I want to go back to your STEM project again, because that's again an area where you didn't just contribute as someone who was working directly with the beneficiaries, but you also worked with the internal Tribes for Good students to mentor them to be those facilitators, right? So how is that for you? Especially, I want to ask this now because you have to leave. So I really want to understand, how does mentoring feel?
Mom, it was actually a great experience altogether. It took us a little time to settle down as a team. We took up the matter one day before. We planned accordingly. We ensured that we had the best of resources, and we had to find videos which were in Hindi, and we also had to ensure the words were simple, because like they have mentioned, that language was of course a very big barrier. And even with STEM, it's very difficult because things like gravitation is Gurutwakarshan. So the Hindi word is more complicated than the entire concept itself. So how do we manage it? So we had to research, like we found videos through Byju's, there was Vedantu. I had ample amount of knowledge. I helped them gather resources, how we could make it more engaging for them. We could create a point system, like everyone will be awarded points, how we could create an icebreaker so that they are confident. And also another issue was like we had Zoom, and in Zoom we do not know what the students are doing. They kept their videos off throughout, so it was very difficult to comprehend. And mostly all of us are from different cities, so it was a unique experience altogether. But eventually we ended up bonding very well as a team, and it was quite a holistic experience altogether.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Krish. We wish you could spend more time with us, but we don't really want to hold you back. So thank you for whatever you've been sharing with us so far. And for our audience, Krish is someone who works on multiple projects with us. So maybe at some point you will get to work with Krish on some project. Hopefully we get to that day soon. Thank you, Krish, for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm going to continue the questions for the rest of our change warriors, the change, not just change warriors, but people who've really been inspiring with their work. So I want to come back to Sunidhi. I think, Sunidhi, we didn't get to complete our conversation. So Sunidhi, in terms of the impact that you have done at Solapur, the children's observation home there, how do you think, like, how were you able to say, okay, I know this child is going to remember me, or I know this is a turning moment for them. So did you have any moments like that?
Yeah. So initially, I didn't think about it at all, because I used to go to teach them when they used to watch TV. So I thought that they're going to hate me because this random person
taking their TV time off.
Yeah. So this random person has come and she started teaching English. But then for me to understand whether they could get what I was teaching them, so I made sure that they wrote feedbacks after every class. So I used to like force them in the initial 1 or 2 weeks to write the feedback. And it was about like, I started with a quote every single day and a story about the person who has said it. And then we used to start our session. So, they used to write. And after every feedback, there was this line which said that, Sunidhi Didi is amazing. We are lucky to have her. Or I'm going to remember her for the rest of my life. And the second thing that was the entry so there's this ground that divides the entrance and the girls' hostel there, the place, and it's a wide space. So when I used to enter the ground, I could hear girls shouting, "Oh, Didi has come, Didi has come, get ready, get the books, let's set, she's come, we don't want her to wait." And if they were like 2 minutes late, they used to come and say like, "Sorry, Didi, we're late." So I used to like tease them, so you don't want to attend my classes or what. So it was fun to listen to them. They used to come up with these fights that they had with each other. And then I used to sit and like,
you were the mediator for them, is it?
Yeah. So they trusted me with their issues. A lot of girls shared what they go through on a daily basis. So I feel like, and a girl actually, she was 18 and, she went for higher studies, which I'm really proud of. We all are proud of. So she went for higher studies and she had a book in which she made me write about, she wanted my signature basically. She was like, write something for me. I'm going to show it to all of my friends. So that is something that keeps me motivating to do that work every single day.
Okay, I don't think a lot of us would ever, get asked for autographs like that. As in, I wish all of you get to that day where, you get a lot of autographs. But for the group of us here, the fact that Sunidhi had somebody ask her for that, I'm sure it's a very heartening feeling. And like you said, it's definitely something you can showcase to the world, shout out all you want and say, hey, this person asked me for my autograph, so I officially made it as a change warrior. But I think the best part about all of you itself is that none of you are looking at your work as, something noble. Like none of you give that vibe of, hey, I did this, I did that. No, all of you are talking about all your projects in the sense of, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. I just went about doing what I could do about it. And I think that's the best trait, if I could call it, about all of you. The fact that you're not looking at this as something to show on a resume or something to add as a badge to your social profiles or anything. It's something you're doing really from the heart, and it shows in the way you talk, and it shows in the way you are able to say that, that child told me this, that child did that, so I think I made an impact. I'm really happy that all of you have had those moments of knowing that, your work did make an impact, and that's amazing that you got to do it. Sunidhi, I will come back to you a little later to ask about, maybe a little more around, or maybe right away, if you could tell it is something that was like a standout problem for you, like, that was the biggest problem that I had to face in terms of the project execution, because got to hear from the others about the obstacles they faced in their projects. And with the others, I think one thing that was sort of a given was they work with beneficiaries who we were aware of at Tribes for Good. And even in your project at Shamata, you work with a beneficiary, again, we are aware. But we don't know about your work with the Children's Observation Home, in the sense of the set of problems could be way different from the kind of obstacles that the other change warriors here may have experienced, right? So I just want to see if there's anything that you want to add to that.
So I'd say that I worked with 2 sets of children. So so let's talk about the first. So it was a wide range. So I used to teach girls from the age of 10 to 18. Okay. So that's a wide range, right? And from the girls to 10 to 18, I used to teach them the basics of English. I started with that. And then it was easy for the older girls to grasp it. But for the younger girls, it was quite difficult because
they're not yet equipped to learn those topics as efficiently as someone, a 14 or 15-year-old would.
Yeah. So like we are used to speaking in English and explaining things in that way. But for me, I had to, switch between Hindi and Marathi. So basically that is something that is like difficult for me as well. When you're explaining certain terms, you know that in English, but it's quite difficult for you to translate it to
Right.
Marathi or Hindi.
Yeah, after all, you didn't have a pari with you. Otherwise, your work may have
Yeah.
been easy. Yeah, right.
So all need a pari.
Yeah, you'll need a pari. So pari, you better connect with Sunidhi later, okay? All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so the first group, they used to go to schools, so they had access to books, pens, pencils, so they were allowed to use that. But I also worked with juveniles, those who were not allowed to have books, any kind of instrument with them, because there were a lot of cases found that they suffered from depression and they kind of
self-harm or anything was
self-harm or something like that. So for me, it was difficult to teach anything because you need to write. For you to remember, you need to jot it down. So instead of that, again, I asked them, like, I know that you don't want to, write and stuff and you're not allowed to. So initially, I worked with one of my friends on that project. We used to provide a pen, like, drawing materials for that period and then take it back. So that really helped. And when I used to teach, when I teach them communication skills and everything, so I make sure that that day in itself, like I invest a lot of time with them. So that day itself, they become accustomed to what I was telling them, through skits, through plays, through actually interacting and, with teamwork. So I made sure that every single day, whatever I teach, they grasp it well and that they understand. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Sunidhi. The reason I also wanted to ask you specifically about your work with the Children's Observation Home is one is, like borrowing Yash's words, as people with our own set of privileges, we tend to have certain assumptions about certain backgrounds of people, and therefore we limit ourselves in ways we can reach out to them and a lot of that. But the way you have gone about those limitations in sense of, not having a pen, not having a paper is not a reason to stop me from teaching them. I think that's something a lot of us could take inspiration from. And also, like you said, not having someone who can translate, like someone that also shows how teamwork plays a huge role in a social impact project, right? Like having someone like a Pari to translate, or having someone like a Yash to come up with a skit or an idea for a fun game makes work so much more fun, right? Like it doesn't become a job. It doesn't become something that you need to do or you feel like forced to do. It's something you want to do. Like it's something from the heart. And therefore the output also changes. The way you look at it changes. I really hope that the audience watching this race, especially potential change makers, you get to understand how these young change warriors talking to you today have used their skills along with like-minded people to meet their goals, even if the scenarios was different, even if their target audience was different. And basically, it's about knowing how to make a good mix of, if you wanted to make a pani puri or you want to make a, I can't even remember any of the chart item names. Maybe I'm hungry somewhere. You need to know what are the things that can go in and what are the proportions that they need to go in. And I think these change warriors are able to tell us, it is necessary to be able to work in unison with a common goal in mind. So thank you so much for sharing that, Sunidhi. I want to come back to, again, because so far we were talking about how our individual projects has been. And I also realized that our projects aren't just about that one project, right? Like especially for people like you who were involved in depth in your respective projects, it's also in some sense shaped who you are. Or I'm going to assume and declare this is my assumption, but I want each of you to maybe tell me if my assumption is right or not. So I assume there is a pre and a post for each of you with regards to your time at Tribes for Good. Like I want to assume that there's a pre-Zehen and there's a post-Zehen, a pre-Yash, a post-Yash. So that's what I want to identify in terms of how has this whole experience, how has the narrative helped you change your own understanding of maybe life, understanding of your privileges, or basically any way that it has influenced you, right? So that's what I want to touch on. Maybe we'll start with Yash for a change. Yash, so
Yes.
is there something that you want to say? Okay, my perspective of this particular thing changed after the program, or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my perspective has changed a lot because, through these workshops that we had, I found out how unprivileged those students we interacted with were, and how grateful I, or rather, we must be each and every day, knowing the things that we have. So yeah, I feel that my perspective on daily life has changed very much since I joined the program and, interacted with the students and talked to them about, topics that need to be addressed.
Right. So you know that you're changing definitely took a transition, right? So
Yes.
based on that change of thought process, uh, are you able to reflect on yourself and say, because of that, I now do this, or anything that you do differently now, or you change the way you look at it, anything specifically like that?
Yes, yes. Recently, like there have been cases where students from my school have been bullied a lot, and I stand up for them because
Okay.
how depressing it can be for a person to be cyberbullied, and standing up for them and being by the side and letting them know that I am by your side and I am with you during this entire process, and I will help you throughout the entire journey. So yeah, that's one thing that I've.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Yash. I think the fact that we are able to be allies for somebody who needs that support is a huge thing. And it's not easy to be an ally, because you need to be fully committed to say, hey, I am going to be by your side because what's happening to you is not okay. So the fact that, the whole project experience helped you turn your voice into not just a voice, but a solid support system is immense. And I feel like that definitely does change your personality, the wanting to be an ally. So thank you for sharing that experience. Pari, do you want to maybe tell us what your pre and post lives have been?
I think my point of view and my perspective has changed a lot for to look at things. And before I joined Tribes for Good, I used to I didn't know much about any of this, not about cyberbullying, not much about LGBTQI2.
Okay.
So when you get to know about these things, when you research on these things, a lot changes, how you think of it and the way you look at it. So I think that changed for me.
Okay.
And I really wanted to work on it, on specifically on the queer community and about mental health of people who get cyberbullied and who face other issues in life. So which is why I started campaigns in my school where we could help these people, and we could become, like you said, allies for them. So this
There.
is how I want to work on it, and I've started. So
Good luck with your responsibility, Pari. That those are really important shoes to fill, and somebody who is not just doing it because they want it on their resume, but somebody who's done enough solid background work on a
yeah.
project, has a far more understanding of the issue, and therefore is able to do a lot better on the job. So we really hope that you're able to do your role well. I want to again maybe slightly touch on that question as an extension, Pari. So is there maybe like one or two lessons that you would say, this is something that is always there in my mind, like I'm going to remember this, or I changed myself in this way? Like
um
just to give you an example, for me it could be a simple thing like, I don't know if you all noticed this while I was just talking to Sunidhi, who was giving a shout out to one of her teachers. I wasn't sure if I heard the teacher's name right, so I did not really know if what was the teacher's gender. I started my answer with a she, and then I realized I did not actually hear the gender, so it was not right of me to assume that
yeah.
Sunidhi spoke about a female person. So I
Yeah.
then switched my answer to a there. So,
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, something that you realize, okay, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm an ally now.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I used to only use he, she, or but now I when I don't know what their what their pronouns are, I just use they. So
Okay.
that changed for me. And I in my friend group, people just used to throw these words around the gay and lesbos and all of that sort. So I don't do that anymore, and I stopped them from doing it because now I know the depth of it, and now I know how much it
can hurt
impacts the
someone.
other person. So that
Right.
that is something that has changed. So these are the mainly two things that have changed.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Zahan, what about you? Your pre-Zahan. I think Zahan was already into talking at conferences and all of that. So I'm sure you have a lot to add then, basis your experience with the project you did with us as well. So what is your transition like?
So firstly, as Yash said, I understood the privilege I had to have been educated about this stuff and
Right.
to have people who were constantly trying to teach me the the actually the meaning and the importance of differentness. I could see in the workshops we did how grateful we should be for everything that we have, and we often forget that
Right.
we're so privileged to have a good home, good food, good water, and everything we could possibly ask for, and we forget that and we complain about our lives. We just
True.
need to open eyes and look at how
How much we have to be grateful for. I mean, how much we can be grateful for, and
yeah, and also I think during the Tribes for Good session and before the Tribes for Good session, I used to apologize a lot more. I think both Pari and Yash can um, back me up on that. I
I'm
think
sorry, I did not get that.
I used
What were
to
you apologizing for?
everything. I apologize for everything. You can ask my instructor Heidi, ma'am. I think
Okay.
she once corrected me that you don't need to apologize. So now I've stopped apologizing as much, and I've started being myself a little more. And yeah,
So when you say apologizing, like you start your sentences with, "Oh, sorry, this is troublesome for you, but could you do this for me?" Is that what you're trying to say?
yeah, literally that.
Okay. Right. Okay. I think I'm extremely happy for you, to say that you have unlearned that need to be sorry for your wants and needs. That's a phenomenal amount of unlearning to do. And I think as someone who also used to be in that position, I'm extremely glad that Heidi was able to tell you that, you don't really have to be sorry for a lot of those things, and that you've also imbibed that in you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Zen, and I'm glad you had that transformation in you.
I
Uh,
I
yeah.
haven't unlearned it completely. I've just learned to do it a
Oh,
little.
it's okay. I think unlearning is like a far bigger task to complete, and it unfortunately isn't really as simple as picking up something, right? So, more power to you, and I hope you get to that point where you're able to verbalize your wants and needs without having to make yourself feel smaller. I mean, it's not just about Pari. I mean, it's not just about Zen. I think all of us, because of the conditioning that we've had in many ways, we tend to make ourselves small when we want to reach out for something. It is a conscious effort to be able to put our foot firm on the ground and say, hey, this is exactly what it is. I'm not going to apologize for wanting this, but this is how it is. And maybe, like Zan said, over time we learn to verbalize it in a better way. Thank you so much for that, sharing that, Zan, and good luck to you for continuing your unlearning with that particular aspect. Suniti, I want to ask you, I mean, you've already told us enough points about your impact. Like I don't know, I can feel, I want to say I'm envious, but knowing that how much of work you have put in, I don't even think I have the what is the word that I'm looking for? I don't think I can be envious. Like I can only feel grateful that there is someone who has used a lot of their strengths to be able to bring about a lot of change like that. So you deserve every feedback that has come your way, every person who has asked for your autograph. You deserve all of that. So what I want to ask is again your personal side though. Like personally, with all of the experiences that you've had, what is one thing that you felt, okay, wow, that is a huge unlearning for me, or that is a huge lesson for me? What would you say?
So when I was working with Tribes for Good on the project of financial inclusion, I got to know that we come from a privileged background. I come from a privileged background where my sister, my mom, and I, we have the freedom to take financial decisions on our own. And
Okay.
I didn't know that, okay, this problem exists so deeply that we really need to do something. Like
Right.
Zen mentioned that for us to actually work on that problem, we have to accept it.
Right.
So when I was working with the girls, I got, you get to know that you really have to be grateful that at your home, you're allowed to take these decisions on your own. And
Yeah.
girls of your age are not being able to do that.
That is a huge learning. Like you said, I think to be able to acknowledge that, it's easy for us to assume that maybe this is how it is in every house or every other place. To acknowledge that, oh, this is not the case. So how do I use it positively is again another challenge. And you've done so well in that regard. Sunidhi, we hope you are able to take forward the lessons from our financial literacy project to your, your battleground or your change ground in your hometown, and to be able to amplify the change that you've been doing. We don't have a lot of time because I know all of you also have a busy evening and school and all of that. So I want to quickly one parting question to all of you. Like, I'll start with Yash. So Yash, if you want to share like one, Yash, because we call you a Zoomer activist, right? So I want to now suddenly make this a generational war. Okay, so not exactly a war, but I want to use your voice to reach out to people of maybe say my generation or generations before me, right? What would you say one message as a Zoomer activist, as someone who knows Gen Z is at risk in terms of cyberbullying? What is one message that you would want to share with people of other generations? And second, what is one message that you want to share with potential change warriors who maybe are interested in the same topic, cyberbullying?
Right. So one thing that I would like adults and parents to know is that being cyberbullied is not okay at all. You can't even imagine what all things a person suffers through after being cyberbullied. A person become depressed, anxious, lonely, and even insecure about themselves. But because most of the parents are like, it's okay, just let it be.
Right, right,
Don't talk to that child who bullied you ever again. That's just
right.
they
Hmm.
tell usually. That's what you don't have to do. As soon as you see someone being a victim of cyberbullying, you straight away report it to, the cyberbullying department or call the cyberbullying helpline, of course. Because these issues are a major reason why 50% of the teenagers commit suicide by the age of 18 in India.
True.
They just can't hold all the negative impact the cyberbullying has on them. And
Hmm.
for a situation like this to not come, for your child as well as others, you should be aware and not be silent. That's all
All
I.
right. And your message to uh, people your own age group who want to maybe be a part of Tribes for Good or
Okay, yeah. One thing I would like to tell the potential change makers that just be grateful with, whatever you have. See, greed is one thing that is surely going to destroy the human race someday, and because of the negativity that it has. And if you're not grateful, just take a look at the people who don't even have houses to live in, who don't even have food, and so many other things that you can't even, imagine of. After that, I'm sure you'll know how important it is to be grateful for whatever you have at the present moment.
all right. Thank you so much for sharing that. Zahan, what about you? If you had to maybe like a parting thought, tell something from your experience as an advocate for differentness, how can people be friends, allies of others, and not really put someone low, like not really make someone feel low by bullying? So, what would you want to say to others, generally to others, and to change warriors who want to maybe work on this particular subject as a project?
I think, first of all, to be an ally to someone, you need to empathize with them. Just a little bit of empathy goes a long, long way. Instead of trying to judge them or trying to sympathize with them, you must actually learn to empathize, because we cannot help someone if we don't put ourselves in their shoes.
True, true, absolutely.
And a message to potential change warriors: we've seen this all around us, this problem of cyberbullying, mental health. It's a huge taboo. So the one thing we can do is, I'm quoting Bob Marley on this, get up, stand up for those kids.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that was a fun, not even a fun way. I would say it's like it's bang on, right? That's exactly what we all need to do. Acknowledge the problem and don't shut up. Do something about it. Like whatever you can do about it, right? Thank you so much for that, Shen. You packed it with a punch beautifully. Pari, what about you? What would you want to say as a message to people who potential change warriors who want to work on this project one? And secondly, okay, maybe I'll ask you a different question because everyone else, because the others are also belonging to the same project. So they've already sort of told about their message to adults and people who can be allies. So I want to ask you, basis, if there was one thing that you could say is something was your most favorite takeaway from the project, and therefore you would urge potential change warriors to give this project a try, what would it be?
I think it would just be interacting with them. Like
Okay.
when you talk to them, you learn a lot more. Like when you get to know what they think of these issues, it's just very enlightening, and it gives you an opportunity to like spread awareness about it to them, because
Right.
they need it too. They need the resources, and when you're giving it to them, it makes you feel very uh I can't think of the right word to say it, but
I
it
think
just
you also feel like you've used your privilege for
yeah,
a good
exactly.
reason and for the greater good in some sense. Right?
Yeah, so I
And
think
this
that
is also, I think, similar to what Sunidhi has been telling us so far, which is that it's not just about giving people what we want to give them. It's also about knowing what do they want. So unless we
yeah,
talk to them, we won't know how much they know about cyberbullying or about mental health. And unless we have that understanding, we're not going to be able to give them anything new,
yeah,
like that they may
exactly.
not know. Thank you so much for that, Pari. And I hope people who heard Pari's response know that if you really want to experience or make a change, it's about stepping in and like learning it by doing. There's no better way to learn it. Thank you for that. So Sunidhi, we're going to end it with you. So what do you want to say to a change warrior who wants to consider not just a financial literacy project, but just any social impact project for that matter, right? Based on your overall experiences, what would you say is something uh, they can just keep in mind, or they don't have to really think of it as a huge thing? So what would you say?
I would say that instead of speaking for people, like you mentioned, it's important to speaking to them, to listen to them.
Yes.
And through this journey, I have realized that how important it is to listen to somebody and just not pass your judgment quickly.
Right.
When I hear stories about from these girls about their daily schedule, or even what has happened, it's so important to listen to them.
Mm.
And to all the potential change makers, I would like to say that um, there's a quote that resonates with me, and it says like, I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. So I just want to say to all the change makers that be associate. Let's go beyond school, like this project is like, let's do something beyond school. It's help people be associated with causes that we are really passionate about,
Yeah.
and get out of comfort zone and do something for the people and uplift them.
Thank you so much, Pari. I mean, thank you so much, Sunidhi. I don't think I can top it with a better ending. So I'm just going to really borrow word for word what Sunidhi said. You can really use your voice to not speak on behalf of someone, but to empower that person to speak for themselves. And like all these change warriors have been doing, it's about being that ally for them. It's about being that support system for them until they feel equipped enough to like stand for themselves in whatever context. Could be, it could be financially, it could be standing up to those oppressors, it could be about wanting to pursue a career that seems far-fetched, like a science STEM field, whatever it is. So thank you, dear change warriors. Just like Sunidhi said, this this goes to show that there's so much you can do beyond school. So explore. This is the best space for you to explore what can be done beyond school. And if you feel like there's something you can do through Tribes for Good, do reach out to us on our Instagram page or a Facebook page or our website, and we will happily put you in projects that are related to your interested areas. And who knows, maybe you will even get to be mentored by some of the folks that you're seeing here on our screens today. So we'll make it happen. Hopefully, we'll probably plan for that sometime later. Thank you so much, Change Warriors, for joining us today. It was a lovely conversation. I always have fun, and goes on to show that the future is bright. But like Zen said, maybe let's just stand up, let's just do it, and then we'll make that change happen slowly. All good by every single person is together going to be a big good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you the best in all your endeavors, and hopefully we will see you back at Tribes for Good for other projects as well. And thank you so much to our audience as well for listening to our Change Warriors stories, and also to know that their journeys have been captured as part of our Unmute series alumni book. We will share the details of that also with you all in maybe in the coming days. So stay tuned for that as well. Thank you so much. Bye bye, all of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.